Well, it's pretty hot here, and my grass is turning brown. So, as two fellow Austinites, I wanted to ask advice of you two. How long do I have before it dies? Last week, the grass was green. Our sprinkler system. We're now entering privileged land. Enjoy your stay. Our sprinkler system is broken. We got a guy coming Monday to look at it, and but my grass is that khaki color. It's slightly crispy. Is it going to last till Monday when I can give it a thorough watering? What am I looking at here?
You can hand water.
Whoa!
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
I'm just saying, as one privileged homeowner to another with a broken sprinkler system, you can be the dude standing out there with the automated sprinkler in your hand.
Hand watering. That's like I'm in the credit sequence for Kids in the Hall or something. Like this is going to be intense.
Yeah, I heard on the news that we are entering what is traditionally the 2-week hottest period of the summer for Austin.
Well, now here's I like your suggestion, Matt Ray. Quandary. I can get 2-day delivery from Amazon Prime. So I could get a hand waterer. I mean, what am I going to? I'm not a barbarian. I'm not going to drive somewhere and buy it. I need it delivered to my house. So that would put me at Sunday. Do I need to order something?
No.
So that I can
My
order?
experience has been that Austin grass, while it will turn brown, it never really dies. It will be okay with either a good rain or just good soaking. Upon the return of your sprinkler system, we'll bring it back to really not a lush green, just a more yellow, a less brown color.
The torched brown dirt next to my house will disagree with you. I have a large dead spot that will never grow.
Well, I mean that's different. Like no matter how much you water in a Texas yard, there will always be some spot like where where it's just limestone with like a little grass on top that it never becomes green no matter what.
Yeah, there's always
a separate issue.
There's always the mystery circle where the aliens must come every night and land. And you're like, why is this one perfect circle of grass always tan? What is happening?
Yes. Every Texas yard has that.
And welcome to another episode of Talking About Yards with Old Men.
It's long talk. So you guys use the hand fertilizer sprayer or do you have the push cart fertilizer sprayer? When you aerate, you put it on your feet.
Please stop. I can go talk to my dad at any time.
I remember an extensive conversation about yard aeration with the other Matt many years ago. He had lots of insights. I bet his yard is freaking green as hell. He's probably got a good looking yard.
Yeah. Well, my dad's Hank Hill, so I get plenty of advice on yards from other.
Well, speaking of yellow grass turning green, Amazon had like a profit this quarter, if I remember. What did they make? Like $95 million?
Yeah, they threw some green in that brown hole.
and I think I tried to read several stories on this, but one of the implications was that AWS was helping make a lot of that money. Like, isn't there a breakdown that AWS made like 250 million in profit, or like I'm getting my numbers all wrong, but it was some three figure. When you round to put an M after the end, it was a significant amount of profit that I think AWS was generating.
They probably couldn't buy more capacity fast enough to outpace the demand.
Man, but it really go ahead.
I was gonna say, I have a whole theory on this. This is my not conspiracy theory, but this is like how Jeff Bezos is so phenomenal with managing stock price. He's trained the financial people to understand that there will be no profits from the retail side, because that's like the ultimate long game. You just take all the money from the retail side and you just reinvest it and you try to win at that. But then he knows if he can show that AWS is doing even better than we think by showing a profit, right, that will result in a phenomenal uptick in stock price. So my theory is that he just tells the retail guys spend every dollar that comes in no matter what. And on the AWS, it's like, hey, you know what? A couple $100 million in profit will add probably, 10 or 20 billion in market cap to our audacious growing empire. So that's my whole theory. And it's like, and of course, they're just doing phenomenal. So
they passed Walmart.
Take phenomenal growth, and then you throw on top of it even better earnings than expected, and you're going to get a tremendous upside in your stock.
I think
It's just I don't understand how that stuff works, man. It's crazy. Like hope gets valued really highly.
well, we'll probably return to that later in the podcast when we talk about other companies with huge valuations. But I think the best tweet I saw on it was, can we just agree at this point that Amazon is a cloud computing platform with a gift shop?
Hey.
I think it is
Yeah.
kind of interesting how it is. It is almost like some weird enigma. It's like, wait a minute, by building this great retail infrastructure that's incredibly unprofitable, they have learned to build a great dynamic infrastructure, cloud computing infrastructure that is extremely profitable. So it's like, it's kind of amazing that worked out that way.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
I mean,
If that was planned out, I'm really impressed by the Amazon strategy team.
This is reminiscent of every episode of one of my dead podcasts called Back of the Envelope, where I would sit down with our friend Ed, who was like a mini hedge fund manager at the time. Not that he was small, but he had a small hedge fund he was managing.
He's a tall dude.
Yeah, he's the opposite of mini. And basically every episode I would say, I don't understand how Wall Street works, Ed. And he would explain it to me. And like, this reminds me of another like crazy thing I was hearing on the radio, terrestrial radio, that Google is launching some sort of balloons to like beam down internet to Sri Lanka, right? And it's kind of like, is this like Aviator 2? Like, what is going on here, right? Like, why are they doing? But then like because I have this whack-a-mole idea of how like you increase the valuation and therefore your personal net worth if you hold share in a company. It seems like you're sort of spinning up the dream of like, we're going to own that, right? Like it's not profitable now, but we're building up an asset. And that asset is the country of Sri Lanka, which we can duplicate everywhere else. And then, I go back to reading my cyberpunk books. It is sort of like whatever happened to being profitable?
But people say that. I think that's like an easy, like that's sort of like the easy punching bag. But if you're given two problems to solve, like, okay, one, be profitable. Like, take, for example, take a company that's making $10 million and I want you to make it profitable, or take a company making this $10 million and have its top line revenue grow by 100%, right? I think most people would say it's much easier to make that company profitable by just by cutting costs, doing less, and maybe that sacrifices some long-term gains. I think most people would take that problem on, or at least would categorize that problem as easier versus like, hey, we're actually going to go double the amount of people that want this and actually pay for it, because that is a much harder problem. And then the belief is always, right? And I think what you're getting at, Kate, is like, but isn't there a point where you harvest profits? And Amazon is playing the ultimate long game. I don't know, maybe the longest of long games, right? I mean, most companies at this point would harvest profits, but Amazon seems to, not need to do that. But I would say, though, I mean, just my own experience is like, it is much harder to grow top line revenue. And I think that's what you would, you said hope, right? I think financial analysts would equate hope with, top line revenue growth, right? Like that's what's so hard, and that's what they're looking for. And that's why they reward companies that do that with tremendous valuations. And the companies that are just really profitable, are typically valued at a lower multiple, if you will.
And if you're not showing that, then you get like a burning case of activist investors, like you're saying with like Citrix, getting people on their board who are like, let's tear this company apart.
You got to extract value from the stone, to mix metaphors. But, it's like Elliott and Associates are apparently like have won their takeover influence with Citrix, which is like, I once had a former coworker of mine, like he was considering going to work for Citrix, and he was asking for my input on it. And it's like, yeah, that's a weird, fascinating company. Like the breadth of the portfolio that they have is odd. I think it satisfies the Apple thing of they could fit it all on a table, but it would be sort of like if you mismatched the food from all holidays across the world into one feast. That's sort of what you would end up with. You've got your virtual desktops, you've got your which one are they? GoToMeeting. They've got their highly differentiated desktop sharing thing, and then they also have a cloud platform, and then Zen, and then NetScaler, which is a make your web go faster thing.
Yeah,
and so it is sort of like it's a challenge to figure out how all those things fit together. And so it does strike me that the move that like someone like Elliot wants to do is like those things together, much as we saw with Novell, are probably worth less if they're together than if they're apart. So it's a regular 1 + 1 = -1 situation.
Or at least 1.6.
1.6. That's right. That's you got your beta alpha going in the wrong directions on your swoop down bar chart.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone from Citrix, and fairly high up, and I started describing. We were talking about CoreOS and Docker, and I was like, you know what? You guys need to have like a product where you have the operating system that's just the hypervisor, and they cluster out together, and like, we have that. I was like, oh, then you need to do a better job explaining your products.
Yeah. No, it's sad. Like you go talk with people who use what do they call it, Cloud Stack or the cloud platform, and they're pretty much like, yep, it works. That's why we don't have any conferences about it.
Wow.
And I mean, I always add that last part in my mind. But
Okay.
But it's sort of like it works, and yet no one knows about it. It has small market share. Like, I don't really know. I mean, other than speculating that it has all sorts of things, it's a weird story of why Cloud Stack isn't more widely a winner. Kind of like Zen itself, right? Like,
I have opinions on that.
Please share.
Please share. Licensing.
Licensing.
Licensing, right? So, like, back in the old dark ages of OpenStack. So, I guess the 5-year birthday is this week or last week or this month or whatever. OpenStack was created because Eucalyptus, the company, they had their GPL licensed software, and they had commercial extensions that were not, open source. And Canonical and NASA had patches that they're like, hey, can we open source these? And you push those out and you release them as Eucalyptus, and we're told, nope, that conflicts with our commercial aspirations. The VMware support, I think, was the gist of it. And so NASA was like, fine, we're going to make our own casino with, blackjack and hookers, and, have our own party. And so they went off and wrote Nebula, their compute part, or Nova, the compute part of OpenStack. And Citrix did the same, or Cloud.com was GPL licensed. And, people were like, yeah, Eucalyptus already pulled that one on us before.
I see. So GPL, once again, profit poison.
Well, it wasn't just straight GPL. Like Cloud.com, I don't think it was. I think it was. I don't even know if it was open source. It might have been closed source. But Citrix bought them, and Mark Hinkle immediately GPL'd all the extensions, or he open sourced all the commercial bits.
Yeah. Well, it's at Apache, right? So doesn't it follow?
Now it's Apache.
Oh, okay.
So it was like OpenStack had a year or two of being the Apache thing, while there was this GPL thing over there that people were like, "How do we know you're not going to burn us again?" And and then they're like, "Well, OpenStack was Python, Cloud.com or CloudStack was Java, and Java's scary to open source developers for some reason." And then the Apache Foundation doesn't have a mandate of evangelism. They have a mandate of doing well-run software projects, and they don't have a mandate of we're going to put a conference on and tell everyone that they should use this product nonstop, and going out and convincing people to use it. That's not what the Apache Foundation does.
Man, you have just raised about 5 topics that would cause me to become the Brandon of this podcast episode.
I was just telling you, this is it. I mean, OpenStack outflanked CloudStack licensing, marketing. Yeah. I don't. Yeah,
I think when our children's grandchildren have to study the chapter on computers in their history book, which I hope they make them take twice in their primary education, like we had to take history twice. Maybe not you, Brandon. I don't know if you celebrate Maryland twice in your education thing, but down here twice.
Did you have to do the Maryland State Pledge?
No, we did not. And there is, as far as I know, there's no Maryland State history class.
class?
At least
Oh,
in
Oh.
your primary
you
and
know what?
secondary education. Maybe that's a collegiate class you
Well,
can take.
I'm sure you guys have your Maryland versions of like Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie and
No,
Sam
no, we don't.
Houston.
He's like,
We
nope,
don't have any of that.
You don't have like a Sam Baltimore and
No, none of that.
uh,
None of that.
a
Well,
Davy
well,
Annapolis.
No
Come on.
aspirations. There's no aspirations to be another country. Nothing. Just
Well, your
Maryland.
little Nino is in for a treat. So,
Yeah, no,
anyhow.
that's right. He'll get it all figured out now. Yep.
So in that part of the history book, I think the first big failure of the IT industry they'll have is the IBM ceding control of the world to Microsoft story, and I don't think it's number 2, but somewhere in the top 10 is going to be like the irony of the GPL. This thing was created to encourage more and more software to be written and be higher quality. It turns out it was sort of poison for things actually happening, right? Like, because it like the intention was exactly what ended up happening, but it's sort of like commercially it's not viable. And so therefore it starts to, if you license things under that, it's a little dicey. It's not as liberating as it
It had its time.
you,
I mean,
you can send all email to Matt Ray and Brandon.
that's like
No. That's a Matt Ray topic. I am out of that.
I mean, yeah, the GPL serves its purpose, but a lot of it historically it fought the good fight, convinced everyone that open source is what they should be doing, and then people are like, yeah, we'll do open source, but we don't like the way you do it. And
yeah. And to be clear, I think the irony of the GPL is that the set of people who the GPL was intended to take down, that is proprietary closed source companies, like learned exactly how to use it to tactical advantage. Like they subsumed the tactics of the GPL and wielded it to their advantage perfectly.
well,
Which is crazy.
or you see like the big enterprise software companies, they won't touch GPL. They'll touch Apache. They'll take BSD. They'll take but GPL, they're like, nah, we'll write our own. They're like, we don't like your open source license. We'll write our own open source code.
So speaking of, can you tell this is a segue? Speaking of poison, there were some rumors that our buddies at HP had a dress code, and in what was, as always, I like to discuss the meta layer of the tech industry. In what was this week's great example of the meta layer of the tech industry, HP very quickly made it known that they do not indeed have a dress policy outside of the smallest niche that was spoken of. But it did result in I would say a good 48 or 3-day cycle where, people like maybe not our buddy, but someone who I enjoyed, the Cloud Opinion guy and others were sort of like, yep, dress code. That's what you want from your cloud provider. Like it's sort of it was a good example of annoying ankle biting that like will distract you. Mm-hmm. But I think they came out that they don't have a dress code. So good.
I know, but it did kind of have even when I first saw it, it had the feel of just kind of a cheap page view, lazy writer kind of thing. It was like, okay, it
was from the register.
I know, it's gonna be like, I'm behind on my page views this week, and I'm gonna write this kind of knowing that at best you've taken out of context, at worst you're just kind of just taking a rumor, and I don't know, it just seems to make why? What is the point of this? You could have probably figured it out. Like if you really cared about it, you would have kind of gotten to the bottom of it maybe in 10 or 20 minutes. But that doesn't page views.
But then they couldn't follow it up with like 10 things you can't wear at HP.
Yeah, that's right. The listicle is written, the video's done. It's all like the whole integrated marketing campaign for that article is already done. So. Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like some lazy, but that is kind of what the web is for, lazy journalism, right? Like, okay, well, this could be true, and then
not like our punditry. It's
not like this researched opinions that I have, right, and that are all factual. So
yeah, I mean, this is some gabfest quality that we're doing right here. There's no denying that. But yeah, it is like, for those who went and watched the video of Matt Ray and I at SolarWinds, you'll see that I have finally achieved the hallowed status of not wearing socks in a professional context. So that's something to shoot for.
And I was the uncomfortable one with my shirt tucked in.
Matt Ray, cloud professional.
Did you not go? You should have worn one of those lab coats, Matt Ray. I would have wanted to see a little SolarWinds lab coat on you.
Yeah, but they gave us T-shirts, right? So
Okay.
they're like,
They did.
They
did.
know.
And I like the color gray that the T-shirts were. It was a good color gray. The kind of like dusky charcoal. I don't know how to call that, but in actual real news related to HP, they bought the Stackato assets from Active State this week for an undisclosed sum. And it's they didn't buy the whole company because Stackato. I mean, Active State also has. If you remember back in the day, if you wanted to do Perl on Windows, you had to use Active State's tools, and they have a few other tools. But they basically bought the Cloud Foundry assets, Stackato, from them to bolster their own HP thing. And being at Pivotal, we do a lot of competitive analysis of HP, and so there's all sorts of stuff flung around about them. But that's good for them to like bring in the talent and the technology and everything that they'll have. And I think it does sort of like I think it'll bolster what HP has in the PaaS and the Cloud Foundry area. I'm not supposed to say PaaS, so I might not get my quarterly bonus because I just said that in the cloud platform area.
So
also, I'd like to know when I get a quarterly bonus. But
So Cote, did you have to update your like Harvey Ball slides where like people like, okay, now we're gonna color them in a little bit more, a little bit less when you did your competitive update in your slides?
Thankfully, I'm not on Harvey Ball duty, so I don't have to do that. But yeah, we'll have to go update that stuff. And I think it kind of narrows it down to you've got us, Pivotal, the one that you should choose, and then and then you've got IBM and who has Bluemix, which is based on Cloud Foundry, and then whatever HP ends up kind of sorting out in the area. And I'm just thinking about this as I'm speaking about it, which is the best type of punditry. But I think it's kind of similar to the Eucalyptus purchase that they had, right? Which I kind of looked at as bringing in the existing business, but also bringing in the talent to help improve what they have.
I was gonna say, intellectual property as well as like some segment of employees.
Yeah, I think if I remember what I was reading, like I think people like all the people over there that are working on Cloud Foundry will move
Bernard
over.
Golden and
We'll move over.
Yeah, I don't know. The Bart, the CEO, is staying at Active State, but I would suspect, if I remember, like the team that works on Stackato is going to move over there. Which
All right. So we should send them all collared shirts. Is that what you're saying?
collared shirts.
Collared shirts, no t-shirts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That'd
exactly.
be. Hey, there's some Pivotal thing you should do.
Bam.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure Pivotal has polos and button-down shirts with the logo on them.
There you go, Cote. That's what you should send them all. That would be funny. 25, 30 polos. That can't cost you that much.
So I mean, if you're Active State, as long as we're like throwing out things that we don't know anything about, like how
Go
big,
on.
go. I mean, how big a carrot do you have to get to like? I mean, was the Cloud Foundry stuff a big part of their business? Was it a small part? Were they, if somebody comes up to a company that has like 2 or 3 products and says, I want to buy 2 of your main products but not the third one, how much do you have to give up to like shrink your company 70%?
Wait, so are you asking what the revenue of Stackato is versus
Yeah, I
overall
mean, I'm sure it's all private, but
yeah,
as a thought exercise, like
this is where if I had my access to 4051, I could go look up some metrics that would allow me to slightly be more educated about pontificating, number of customers and things like that. But yeah, I mean,
are they just
I think last I remember that is sort of like public knowledge. Like I think the revenues were pretty balanced between their legacy portfolio and the Stackato portfolio. I don't really know though. I could be completely wrong on that, but they were both. Let me put it this way: the legacy part and the Stackato part were both important parts of the business, right? Like one of them wasn't like dying or terrible or like shriveling on the vine. They may not have been the same revenue wise, but they were both pretty vital to the business. And the other background to know about Active State is they used to be owned by Sophos, or like part of them. Like they've traded hands in not weird ways in a bad way, but in interesting ways over the past. So Sophos, the security company of all people, used to own part of them, and then they got spun out again. And so like, there's a lot of interesting financial structural stuff, and again, not in a bad way, but that's a little weird. But I mean, I would suspect that it's probably. I mean, I would hope that it was just kind of like a good cash out event for the people who own Active State and own Stackato and stuff. Because, I mean, I think despite the fact that they're a competitor, I mean, I think they were doing pretty well. Like, I think they could have probably remained independent and still climbed up more. And I do believe that there probably is synergies that if. And I say this as someone who came from Dell, where we always had this hopes and dreams, so you can put the dial either direction you want. But HP is a much larger place that if you can get the field to understand and sell it, you can kind of sprinkle some nitro on that. But that's one of the more harder things to do. But I mean, it seems like a good match. If HP wasn't doing well enough with their Cloud Foundry development and product, and they wanted to use this as a way to bolster it, then, you know, there's not really that many other people you would buy. So there you go.
And then there were 3.
Yeah, and miscellaneous other stuff. But yeah, that's so good job. Another Vancouver success. Speaking of
Vancouver successes.
So what's up? Is it GitHub's a $2 billion company? How come everyone compares them to the New York Times? That's a weird comparison.
What?
I keep seeing that their valuation is higher than the New York Times. Like that's a valid thing. Also, I had to hold myself back from tweeting that like I don't know what the math is, but that I bought. I gave Cormac $10 to buy 0.001% of his corporation, and therefore he's now valued at $2 billion. It's just like whatever. You can do that.
Fun with math. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is the has there any kind of whiff of what the revenue is at GitHub is? Like, I mean,
I didn't spend the time to track that down, but I'm sure they have some number of enterprise customers and things like that. You could probably monitor.
I'm sure they're doing really well.
Yeah.
I mean, everywhere I turn, it's GitHub Enterprise. You know.
Yeah, that seems like definitely true. I just wonder, like, how profitable. I mean, I guess it's just maybe just asking, like, how, like, assume you are the dominant, you know, source control, right, sort of the enterprise. Like, what's that worth? Like, what I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is that overall market? I mean, I don't know. People pay a lot for that. I mean, maybe I just don't know.
Yes.
Clearly, I don't know.
I mean, if you know the SaaS version of it, you know, there's a bunch of different tranches of you know, oh, you've got this many private repos, that many private repos. Probably for the on-prem version, pricing is probably listed somewhere, but you know, you probably just put another 0 on the end or something like that, and you know, and then you have this appliance that does the same thing the hosted version does, but it's, you know, behind the firewall. I don't know I mean, that's a lot of money though.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
you know, 350 million in VC.
Yeah. Well, I do think it does feel like, I don't know, you know, you'd be interesting to get your take, Matt, right? But like, it feels like kind of one of the few winner take all, like truly winner take all kind of markets. Like, it doesn't.
I don't know.
Feel like people. Well, this is where I was going. It's like it feels like so many people. I mean, it's just so synonymous, right? Like, it feels like everyone's using it. That it's hard for me to even say who's in second in, like, are people really? I'm sure there's
in second.
This, but, I'm just saying, like, I'm sure people are using it, but it does feel like, wow, man, if you get the mind share of the developer community in force like this, that is very difficult to displace. So, you know, maybe that explains why it would be worth, especially over the long term, like, not something you're going to come in and displace overnight very easily.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the reason I was quiet, I was looking this up. I think I don't know if IDC puts version control and ALM, application lifecycle management, but their let's see, their forecast was that ALM would be a $1.1 billion market by 2017, and that has stuff like Rally version 1 and Lassie, and I'm not sure if it has version control, but I would estimate if you were to call it the developer tools market, that's probably maximum like maximum a $4 or $5 billion market.
All right, so we're saying if that valuation, if we want to believe it for at least for a moment, we're saying they have 50%. They're 50% of that. Okay, I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say they're probably at least 50%.
Right, but that $4 to $5 billion is version 1, Atlassian, Rally, Code Collab,
Smart
Perfor.
Yeah,
like everyone. And so that's all of IBM's tools, right? Like cloud, like all this stuff. And so, yeah, it's a relatively small market compared to like database, but it sounds like a lot of money to me.
Well, and I'm sure like the model is it's annual subscriptions, and so they get and all your code is there, so it's like you're not gonna change, which is funny that like there'd be that built-in lock-in of a distributed version control system. but it's one of those things like, oh yeah, all of our code's there, we're probably not going to move it out because that would be a lot of work. But you asked who like number 2 was. It's Atlassian. They've got they bought Bitbucket, and I think the enterprise version is called Stash. And I know people who use it because it's like GitHub Enterprise is expensive, and it does all the nice things that that the hosted version does, and it has its Active Directory integration, and Stash does too, and it's half the price. And that's Atlassian's game. It's just like, we're cheaper than the market leader.
Right.
Well, we do most of this stuff.
My completely unscientific poll is like, I hear developers complain if they can't use GitHub. I don't hear them complain about GitHub. Not saying they like it, but they don't. It's like if they go somewhere and they don't have it, they're like, oh, we should just use GitHub. Like I've heard that a lot, but I've never heard like I hate GitHub, I want to get off it.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's in. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's like a great cash cow kind of business that like once you're in, I mean, it's going to be hard to throw that out and get rid of that. So, I mean, again, over the long term.
And also looking at reasoning valuation, right? So a company like GitHub, if you don't break it, would be easily worth that much money to someone like an IBM, Oracle, or even a Microsoft. Someone who has a massive cash cow developer business that they need to sustain and grow a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so if one of those companies, and I'm probably leaving someone off, but those are the ones that have, and I guess there's SAP as well, but I don't think that would really apply here. But if you have a hold of a giant pipe of money that gets shot out
Salesforce.
by years of developers, that would be another interesting one. Then like owning GitHub would actually be, to use this word in the only context I genuinely use it, have good synergies for you. And $2 billion wouldn't be that big of a deal.
And Microsoft shut down Codeplex, moved everything to GitHub. Google shut down Google Code, moved everything to GitHub. So, they're clearly winning. And I know plenty of like Git haters and GitHub haters, but it's like, what else are you gonna do?
You could use Mercurial.
Well, what's funny about Mercurial is Facebook and Google are both investing resources in Mercurial because it scales bigger and farther than GitHub, or than Git does, not GitHub. And you're like, well, what does that matter? Well, because those guys have code repositories that are insanely huge, and But most people don't have that problem, and for all its warts, Git is the de facto standard now.
So the message is, if you are forced to write your own file system because of the nature of your business, you might be interested in Mercurial.
Yes. If there are performance issues because you have terabytes of history in your repository, you might need a bigger tool. Mortals can stick with Git. And I'm sure the Git developers are not standing still. They're continuing to make refactoring and improvements to their code base. Well, to close out the topic, I mean, I think Atlassian is perpetually going to IPO later this year, whether that's 2013, 2014, 2015, or 2016.
They're kind of like the virtual desktops of the AFL industry. But it would be awesome when and if they IPO, because a lot of these questions we would have more interesting data to look over. And I guess you could look at Rally's financials, but was it CA that bought them?
Yeah, CA bought them.
So they had some financials for a while ago, but like there hasn't been that many pure play companies that I know off the top of my head that you could look at. But like Atlassian has a really interesting portfolio for the developers don't pay for anything theory of life, and it would be illustrative. How do you say that? Illustrative of what's going on at GitHub. If you could also peer Atlassian, because they're pretty similar.
Well, and Atlassian is also, once they get in the door, it's like, it's just, you don't switch.
Yep. There's no better sticky virus than shit works.
Or don't make developers do something that, don't make developers change what they're doing.
So also in developer land, so someone put in here this Twilio thing.
Yeah.
They like what do they do?
Speaking of companies that have locked up their niche of the market and just dominated. So Twilio does phone. Anything that you would do through a phone, like they provide developer APIs for and tooling around. So sending SMSs, text to speech, voice trees, or phone trees.
So what you're saying is their motto could be "We bring analog to the digital business."
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they all those like, you get those phone calls from your airline that's like, oh, your flight's delayed. Twilio does all that. I mean, they're the back end for so many commercial services, and it's like their prices are good, and so it's like as long as they keep their prices low, it prevents a competitor there's a natural barrier to entry if you can keep your prices from getting too high where people are like, hey, we could undercut them and get all their customers who are unhappy. It's
right.
Like Twilio customers are pretty happy.
Yeah, no, that someone has explained them before to me, and you did an equally perfect job of like, oh, that makes total sense. I get it now, and it also reminds me of I've been when I go visit with prospects and customers nowadays, I frequently get involved in a conversation of like, how do we move our monolith thing into a cloud architecture? And inevitably it ends up being like, well, we can't move this part because it hooks up to a WebSphere MQ thing. We can't move this part because it depends on an autonomy CMS system. Like there's all these services that there are dependencies on that basically makes it so you're delightfully stuck. And it does strike me that like things like Twilio are sort of like, well, this is what you should be doing, right? Like you should be using this to resurrect an old term that came up this week, the API economy, right? Like you need to have all these services that you're depending on for this backend stuff. And I mean, do you think it's fair to say that they're one of the more mature, one of these like, I don't even know what to call that, a SaaS service?
It's a SaaS. I mean, it's an API for pay. And they handle all that plumbing and nastiness for you and provide language bindings for everything. And it's like, it's like, who knew that this was an important thing? And then, would they raise another 130 million? And they're, now valued over $1 billion because it's like, and what was kind of interesting is like, this is a E round of funding, and the investors are people who probably, traditionally would have been the ones, taking you public.
Oh, yes.
Banks.
Money, how does it work?
Well, but it's not like traditional VC anymore. It's Wall Street banks.
But I always wonder, Twilio is because I've, like everyone, right? If sometime the requirement comes up, send a voice or SMS messages, Twilio is always the first thing that people point to. But I've always thought to myself, like, it's, if you ever displace SMS as the lowest common denominator, like, WhatsApp and, so many of the messaging, popular, apps, like, they just offered an API and allowed you to just send messages, right? Then you can get away from SMS in like certain parts of the world, right? SMS messages are still expensive. Obviously here in the US it's mostly unlimited, but it does seem like one of those like taxes that you just feel like, oh man, this could go away. Like we're so close to getting rid of this. But having said that, no one's done it. So again, maybe that barrier of entry is just too high, but it does seem like something that could be easily removed pretty quickly.
Well, and I'm sure that like Twilio continues to expand into other messaging platforms. It's not just SMS. It's also direct phone calls. It's I'm sure they're like, oh, we'll do some email. Hey, now we're now we're a mail gun. Now we're doing the same thing as all those other people. Probably.
No doubt they have them all, but I would just from an outsider, my belief is like SMS carries the money there. Like that's their cash cow, right? And then the other things like, yeah, they're nice, but SMS is really the thing driving the revenue there.
Yeah. Yeah, what I really want is Twitter direct messages instead of SMS. I'm like, oh, I sorted out Twitter's problems.
And then there's also Slack, so that adds another dimension.
Yep.
Can we have our Slack corner this week of the episode? So I have been there's a member of our team who's a delightful individual, and I mean that in a sincere way. And he's recently resurrected himself and started interacting a lot more. And the lack of just like threaded conversations in Slack has just made it into like, when you go to one of those conferences and you're hanging out and then the band comes on and you're like, oh, now none of us can hear each other. Good planning. Like it's sort of like that. If everyone's maximizing their use of a Slack channel and there's no threading or whatever, I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do, but it is like I'm struggling with the Slack. That's like, remember that movie Doubt at the end where she's like, I have so much doubt. That's I'm having that moment with Slack.
But isn't the answer always you're supposed to open up another channel? Isn't that
I think so.
Can you just get a room?
I was gonna say, but you're kind of you're the man on the street, Cote. Is it in practice like that is just too difficult? Like people won't do it.
Yes, I think the answer to your question is two parts, Brandon. The first part is yes, and the second part is this proves another law which doesn't have a name yet, which is, hey, how's it going, fun disruptive company? You should really think about training. Training is really important, right? Like you can't just put a tool in front of someone without sort of having you tell your users that's what you're supposed to do instead of just figure it out.
Well, I know in IRC, when you deploy IRC at the beginning, it's just like a total free-for-all and nightmare. But then I think if it goes on long enough, like a certain amount of channels, become kind of static, right? And everyone kind of knows, okay, these are the channels. And occasionally one will pop up just for like some like transient conversation and go away. But like there's like, I don't know, some informal like hierarchy that comes out of it, and it generally stays pretty well over a period of years. So I don't know. I imagine that's what would happen with Slack, right? It's like you get these channels, and then everyone kind of gets it, and then it sounds like you got
people over process, man, or maybe actually some process would be good.
So
that's your non-ad ad for this week. Slack used in Antarctica. All right. I didn't get a chance to read your Fearless Leaders overview of DevOps, Matt Ray.
We'll save it. We'll save it for some other time.
We'll put that in the bonus links. But before we go to our recommendations, I feel like I've been yelling this whole time, and I apologize for that. But it's exciting. I was actually I had a rare delight this morning. I was on a podcast that the Kia company puts on. They're like analysts of analysts, I guess. They're a consultancy that helps you out with analyst relations and things like this. And we talked about this a while ago, but I wrote a long piece about the industry analyst business. And they put together this podcast panel of myself and Phil from Horses for Sources, and this guy I'd never met with the awesome name of William Tincup. And then also Horace Deju was on it. So I finally got to be on a podcast with Horace Deju, which was great.
Wow.
It was like the highlight of the quarter. So
this is some inside baseball right here. People don't know how important that was. Well, how was it? Was it as good as you expected? Was he as great? Can we listen to this one yet? Will it be coming out soon?
Behind the paywall?
No, they're not like me, who's basically just gets on Matt Ray's back to like send him the link and then post it with minimal editing. I think they're actually going to edit it.
Wow.
And put some care into it. So I bet it'll be up in a week or so or something like that. But yeah, we'll definitely put a link to it. But yeah, it was a fun conversation of what's going on with the industry analyst market. And with that panel of people, it would have been nice to have like a Gartner person on there or someone from one of the big shops, but there was a lot to say about what's going on in the analyst world. It was quite enjoyable. So with that, you ready to move into recommendations?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Well, Brandon, how about you take it away first?
Well, I mean, the first thing is everyone's got to listen to that podcast when it comes out, because I'm interested to hear what you guys had to say. But I've been just continuing my search for more podcast, and I did something today or previous week that I almost never do. Is I gave some people that produce podcasts some money, which is almost against the will of podcast. The guys at Gimlet Media, the home of like Startup and Reply All and a couple other podcasts, they have a subscription thing they did, and I did it. And because I am now a fancy member, they gave me access to a new podcast that they're creating called Awesome Boring, which is co-hosted.
You've gone beyond the paywall.
I have. That's what this is, beyond the paywall. I did. Unbelievably, I paid for something on the internet. And it's one of the hosts is one of the guys that did Planet Money, and the other guy is a famous screenwriter that whose name I just forgot. But trust me, he's done the movies you want. So anyway, so they have a podcast that is, I guess it's in beta, if you will, or in development. Sorry, in the media world, it's in development. Software, it's in beta. So they're looks like they're going to launch it though sometime soon. So if you really want to be on the cutting edge, you can sign up for Gimlet Media. Probably not really worth it, but I did. But if you wait long enough, you can probably subscribe to Awesome Boring, which as the name implies, I think it's fun. And my only hope is they work the Lego song "Everything Is Awesome" into their theme music. But so check it out. The first episode was pretty good, and I'm sure they'll be launching here in the not too distant future.
So Matt Ray, what's your recommendation this week for something that's, quote, probably not worth it?
Tumblr.
Internet.
Yeah. Wow. With that lead in, yes, things that are, well, they're a good waste of time.
Guilty pleasures. That's the way I would say it.
Yeah.
Guilty pleasures. You just buy it. You shouldn't spend it, but you did it.
Yep.
Well, yeah. If you have too much time on your hands, the Tumblr, we put a chip in it. Goes through things that they decided needed to be digital for whatever reason, and it's just a Tumblr of just random things like cat food bowls with chips and luggage with CPUs and just not everything. I'm going to be the old man who's like you kids and your Internet of Things. All I needed was a phone, right?
Yeah. Jitterbit, jitterbit.
Yeah, it's entertaining. And then I threw in a YouTube link to how farfalle noodles are made. So it's hypnotic to watch because they it's like the machines are running and spitting them out, and then you're like, okay, that's kind of cool, and then it's slow motion. It's like then the bass hits and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Just watch it.
I'll have to check that out, but I do enjoy We Put a Chip in It. Like we need to get that old Simpsons cartoon of the newspaper thing. Old man yells at cloud.
Yes.
Sort of like old man yells at world's first smart bikini.
Yeah, exactly. Old man yells at Internet of Things. That's me.
Well, so this week I also have a Tumblr recommendation. Sometimes you're just walking around the house and you just find a Tumblr blog that just fits perfectly. And it's check it out beavis.tumblr.com. And it's just stills from our old favorite show. All the memorable stills that you could ever want to see from Beavis and Butthead, which one of the I won't say underappreciated, I think thoroughly appreciated cultural artifacts from our late youths. It's good stuff.
Well, they actually relaunched a few episodes. Was it last year, the year before? They had a new run of episodes, and then I think Mike Judge went and did Silicon Valley.
Oh yes, yeah. He's
good stuff.
Got other things to work on. Well, this has been another thrilling episode of Software Defined Talk, which you can find at softwaredefinedtalk.com. which will redirect you to my website, where you can find show notes if you follow a convention for things like, this is episode 39. So you can go to kote.io/SDT39 to see show notes. And if you don't want to search for things like we put a chip in it and awesome boring and check it out Beavis, you can just click on stuff instead. And as always, also, if you go to the show notes, if you want to get 2 free months using our public PaaS service at Pivotal, you can see what it's like to CF push your way into things. And you sign up there and you get 2 free months using it for free. And then maybe you'll love it. You can get other stuff that I'll link to there as well. And with that, we'll see everyone next time.